Have you ever felt like you had it all, only to have the rug pulled out from under you in a single devastating moment? That's exactly what happened to Eleanor Vance, a name once whispered with admiration in the highest echelons of the business world. She was the architect of a billion-dollar empire, a woman who seemed to turn everything she touched into gold. She was sharp, she was driven, and she was on top of the world. And to make life even sweeter, she was expecting her first child with the man she loved, Richard, her seemingly perfect partner. Life felt complete, a beautiful tapestry woven with success and love. But behind the shimmering facade of her perfect life, a storm was brewing, one that would tear everything apart. It all started on what should have been one of the happiest days of her life. Eleanor, radiant and glowing, was at her final prenatal checkup. The doctor's words were like music, confirming a healthy baby was on the way. As she left the clinic, her heart full of joy, she decided to surprise Richard at his office. He was the COO of her company, her right-hand man in both business and life. Or so she thought. Walking through the sleek, modern hallways of the company she built from the ground up, she felt a surge of pride. She imagined telling Richard the good news, seeing the smile light up his face. But the smile she was about to see wasn't for her. As she approached his office, the door slightly ajar, she heard voices. A man's laugh, deep and familiar, Richard's, and a woman's voice, light and playful. Eleanor's smile faltered, peeking through the gap. Her world shattered. There was Richard, her Richard, locked in a passionate embrace with none other than her own half-sister, Isabella. Isabella, the one she'd always tried to help, the one she'd given a position to in her own company out of pity. The sight was a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs. Betrayal, sharp and cold, pierced her heart, but the worst was yet to come. Their words, whispered between kisses, were the final, fatal twist of the knife. They were talking about her company, about their plan. Once the transfer is complete, she'll have nothing, Richard murmured, his voice laced with a greed she'd never heard before. Isabella laughed, a sound that was no longer just playful but cruel. And with her out of the way, everything she built will be ours. Her baby, well, that's just an unfortunate complication. Eleanor's blood ran cold. It wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was a coup. They had been systematically siphoning her assets, plotting to seize control of her entire empire, leaving her pregnant and penniless. In one horrific instant, she lost her partner, her sister, her company, and her future. The shock sent a wave of pain through her body, and the world dissolved into darkness as she collapsed. Eleanor woke up in a sterile white hospital room, the smell of antiseptic sharp in her nose. The first thing she felt was an emptiness, a profound and hollow ache. The doctor delivered the news with a heavy heart. The stress and shock had been too much. She had lost the baby, the last piece of her perfect life, the one thing she had cherished above all else, was gone. The grief was a physical weight, crushing her, leaving her unable to breathe. In the span of a few hours, the woman who had everything was left with absolutely nothing but a broken heart and the bitter taste of betrayal. She was alone, in a hospital bed, with no family, no partner, and no empire to her name. Richard and Isabella had won, or had they? Lying in that hospital bed, surrounded by the ruins of her life, something inside Eleanor shifted. The overwhelming grief began to smolder, slowly igniting into a cold, hard rage. They thought they had broken her. They thought she was just another casualty in their ruthless climb to the top. They were wrong. They had taken her love, her family, her company, and her child. But they had forgotten one thing. They had forgotten who she was. She was Eleanor Vance. She had built an empire from scratch once before, and as she stared at the ceiling of that stark white room, she made a silent, unbreakable vow. She would do it again. This time, however, it wouldn't be about building a legacy. It would be about vengeance. 5 years passed. The world had largely forgotten Eleanor Vance. The business world now celebrated Richard and Isabella, the power couple at the helm of what was once Eleanor's company. They were the toast of the town, their faces gracing magazine covers, their success a constant public reminder of Eleanor's loss. But while they were basking in the spotlight, Eleanor was in the shadows, meticulously rebuilding. She started with nothing, taking on odd jobs, saving every penny, her vow for revenge the only thing fueling her. She studied, she planned, she networked with a singular burning focus. She wasn't just rebuilding her fortune, she was forging weapons. Slowly, painstakingly, Eleanor clawed her way back. She founded a new, unassuming investment firm. No one connected the dots. To the world, she was a ghost, but behind the scenes, she was making strategic moves, buying up stocks, acquiring smaller companies, and laying a complex trap. Her new company grew in the shadows, a silent predator waiting for the right moment to strike. She knew Richard's business practices, his weaknesses, his arrogance. She had taught him everything he knew, and she would use that knowledge to orchestrate his downfall. She watched them, studied their every move, her patience as cold and sharp as a shard of ice. Her moment was coming. The stage was set at the annual Global Innovators Gala, the most prestigious event in the corporate calendar. Richard and Isabella were the guests of honor, set to receive the Entrepreneurs of the Year award. They stood on stage, smug and triumphant, basking in the applause. As Richard began his acceptance speech, thanking his brilliant partner Isabella, the massive screens behind him suddenly flickered. The corporate logos were replaced by a single, striking image, a photo of a pregnant, smiling Eleanor from 5 years ago. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Then, the screens began to play a recording. It was the conversation Eleanor had overheard outside Richard's office all those years ago. Their treacherous words, their cruel laughter echoed through the stunned silence of the grand ballroom. The final piece of her plan fell into place as news alerts began flashing on everyone's phones. Major news outlets were breaking a story, a massive, hostile takeover. Eleanor's shadow company had, in a stunning move, acquired a controlling stake in Richard and Isabella's empire. Financial reports, leaked by Eleanor, exposed their fraudulent activities and embezzlement schemes that had been propping up their success. Panic erupted. On stage, Richard and Isabella's faces turned from triumph to terror. Their empire was crumbling around them in real time, broadcast for the entire world to see. And then, she appeared. The ballroom doors swung open and Eleanor Vance walked in. She was no longer the broken woman from the hospital. She was poised, powerful, and radiated an aura of unbreakable strength. She walked straight to the stage, the crowd parting before her like the sea. She took the microphone from a stunned Richard. "You took everything from me," she said, her voice clear and steady, ringing with authority. "My company, my family, my child. You thought you erased me, but you only made me stronger." She looked out at the bewildered faces of the industry that had forgotten her. "Let this be a lesson," she declared. "True power isn't about what you can take. It's about what you can endure and rebuild." In that moment, Eleanor Vance didn't just reclaim her empire, she reclaimed her name, her power, and her story. She was no longer a victim, she was a victor, and her revenge was complete.